One other thing I really like to share with my clients is the idea of spaghetti therapy. Now, what spaghetti therapy is hopefully a more palatable and easily understandable way of explaining a deeper psychological issue that people often face, which is the presence of unhelpful rules for living. So, what a rule for living is it's a way that we feel we must be or act in order to be of good enough, or of value, or of worth, or of likability as a person in the world. Let's say you experienced some difficulties when you were young, something traumatic, or maybe you received messages about being not good enough or inadequate through schooling or parenting or whatever. And as you reached adulthood, you've got this kind of lasting impression of your inadequacy. Now, brains won't just settle for that. What a brain will do is it will find ways to overcompensate for that perception of your own inadequacy. So it won't just accept the fact that I'm not good enough. It would instead say things like, I'm not good enough, so therefore I'm going to work twice as hard as everyone else. In every avenue of my life, I'm always going to outperform. And if I don't outperform them, then it's bad news to me, because that's just evidence the fact that I'm in fact inadequate in some way, shape or form. So that's what a rule for living is. It's a way of compensating for our perceived inadequacies, which on the surface maybe doesn't sound like such a bad thing. However, thinking back to my example, it's quite easy to see how that would lead us into kind of traps in life, or ways of being that don't really serve us or make us happy. If we're always having to outperform everyone else in every domain of our life, firstly, that sounds exhausting. Secondly, it sounds impossible. And thirdly, it sounds like it doesn't leave any space for anything else in that person's existence. So maybe these rules for living that we abide by, albeit subconsciously, haven't always got our best interests at heart. So, what is spaghetti therapy? Now, in the absence of having a piece of spaghetti, I will in fact use this pen. So, a rule for living can be understood as this pen. So when you go through life and there's nothing challenging our rules for living, there's nothing triggering my anxiety about my inadequacy, my rule for living just remains intact. But if something comes along that threatens it, it puts a bit of pressure on it and it starts to bend. And that might be something like an exam coming up. It's threatening. It's making me question my adequacy. I'm going to have to work really hard now. It might be in a team project or something like that, or I don't know, many domains. But basically, it's putting pressure on my rule for living, and it's becoming activated. Then all my difficult feelings come activated as well. Now, in that state, my behaviour will tend to follow quite predictable patterns, which is overcompensation, overworking, over-preparation, reassurance seeking. I might even go the other way. I might just bury my head in the sand. I might avoid all responsibility. I might try to not think about it. Either way, these are two pathways which serve the same function of protecting my self-esteem, protecting my core belief about being inadequate from coming to light. As I said, that can be a very difficult place for people to live in because it's not comfortable. Now, another thing that happens, which my pen won't be able to do, is sometimes we put so much pressure on our rule for living that it snaps in half, like an uncooked piece of spaghetti. And when it snaps in half, that's when I've received confirmation in my life, absolute, unambiguous confirmation in my life that I am in fact inadequate. So perhaps I didn't do the best in a test, or I failed on a work project or something, or a sporting event, something like that. So there's no debate, black and white, I'm inadequate. Now, when we're under that pressure and the rule is being flexed, we usually tend to feel anxiety. When it's been fully snapped and it's confirmed that your worst fear has come true, we usually feel depression in those situations. And that is spaghetti therapy, and how spaghetti can be used to understand a deeper seated psychological issue, and also what gives rise to depression and anxiety. Well, that was a whistle-stop tour. I've probably missed loads of useful information. I hope it wasn't too garbled. It's quite a lot of information there crammed into a short video, but I would love to hear if that was useful for you and if you can relate to that, or equally, if there's any points on that weren't clear that you'd like me to go over again, and I'd be very happy to help explain that to you. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Take care. All the best.